Hello. Welcome to this presentation over research in the library and research options when you are searching in the library. Today, we are going to be going through the steps of how to find sources and to know the library and library services better at Ivy Tech Indianapolis. So today I'll be taking you through this instruction, and we will be covering a lot of ground, especially for people who are new to this, but also as technology tends to change a little bit every time you blink your eyes. This is also a refresher of some of the resources that we have here at our campus. So today the learning objectives are to teach students and to remind anyone who visits or are patrons of our library how to find information from appropriate sources. We are going to talk about identifying different databases and resources relevant to a research project. And this modeling is for English 111, but this could actually be for comm. This could be for psychology. This could be for any class that requires some type of research. And then we'll talk about keywords for keyword searching that help to represent a research topic and using those keywords to find useful information when you're looking for your sources. So those are the goals today. What our agenda will cover will be how to access our library, how to access and to know about our academic tutoring that is offered at Ivy Tech in the Indianapolis campus, how to search databases, and to know what to look for or how to use the sources once you have identified them within the databases. So to start, we're going to begin with the scenario that hits a lot of students when they are sitting in a class where, and we'll use English 111 as our example, even though, again, this could be for any research-based class. And a lot of times when we're sitting in, or students are sitting in an English 111 class, their instructors will give them a topic or they'll be reading a set of documents, or they've been given a certain amount of material to cover in their class, and it will cover a theme or it will address a theme. So it will be looking at technology or the environment or public art. But another popular topic is one where students are asked to identify a problem in their community or the world, and they are asked to consider what the problem is and then to address how it can be improved. And so a lot of times one of the ways of referring to this is the policy argument and change prompt, or the theme. And so in today's demonstration, we're going to be talking about how one might be able to take this huge concept, and it's always a huge concept, no matter what your teacher is talking about in class. But one of the first obstacles or one of the first challenges that students have is to look at this big theme that's been going on, that they've been discussing in class and doing assignments for, and breaking it down into a smaller piece for the purposes of doing further research, whether it's leading to a paper, or it is leading to a presentation, or perhaps both. Maybe sometimes it's collaborative. And so we have to take this big concept and then we need to make it smaller. So when that happens, students a lot of times will come to the library or will receive some, we'll hear that students are saying, hey, I need to study policy argument and change. And so my question is, well, what's the problem? What's the policy that you want to maybe address? And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the how to find the library site. So what we're going to do is, and we'll address that question as well, of course. And And to find the library site, which is where you can start to do the best brainstorming for a question such as this, is that we're going to start at My Ivy. And My Ivy is the home base where we suggest that everybody starts and familiarizes himself with when they're an Ivy Tech student. And from here, you can find the library site in two different ways. You can go to the See All button about the middle of the top part of the page. And when you click on this, this will open up to all your apps or the quick links that are associated with your account. You would see both library and library statewide if you clicked on See All around the L's because everything is alphabetized. Up here on the left-hand corner, you'll see this search box, and this is also where you can search for the library. If you type it in, you see library by itself and then library statewide. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on the top one for library. Now, the reason this is, we're looking at the library for Indianapolis specifically, is because this library site contains information that is very specific to our downtown campus. Now, when I talk about our downtown campus, I'm also referring to Plainfield. Plainfield is also part of our library system or our downtown Indianapolis system. They just don't have a separate library, and they are located outside of Marion County in Plainfield. And so they are one of our satellites. So that's what I'm talking about. And a lot of people who are from central Indiana consider Indianapolis as its biggest campus. Now, the statewide site is still very useful. We use them in our trainings, or we use it in our training, the statewide site. But this one is going to be more beneficial for you. So I would assume I would encourage students from Indianapolis to use our site. There are others depending on where you live in the state. So just to familiarize you with our library site, we start off almost clockwise by finding the date, the times that we are open, and having access to the weekly hours and where we are located. So if you are new to campus, or maybe you're remote, or you take virtual classes and then you come on campus in different times, maybe just infrequently, or you are just here on campus and you want to know when we're open, this is a good place to start. You can see what days of the week we're open and when we're closed. Next, we do offer robust tutoring here at the Indianapolis campus, and this extends beyond your needs for research. We, in addition to having writing tutoring, which would probably help you quite a bit once you start that writing stage, we also have librarian tutoring. Everything I'm talking about today can be done one-on-one, in person, or virtually with a student here who attends Ivy Tech Indianapolis. So if you need to find sources, you can talk to a librarian and they can sit down with you for 45 minutes and we can look through databases and help you find the sources you need so you can prepare for potentially a writing tutoring appointment where they can help you start to type it out or write out your thoughts based off of the sources that you found. We also offer math and science tutoring. We offer life sciences tutoring, IT tutoring, and nursing tutoring once you are accepted into the nursing program. We also offer study rooms. Study rooms are located in the library space, and those can be checked out for individuals as well as for collaborative work. We always like to feature a resource of the month. We have over 130 databases, and depending on your specialization, depending on your major and what you want to do career-wise, some of these databases are excellent for where you are going and for some more information. So for this example, we're looking at a psychiatry database. We also offer statewide workshops and events throughout every 8 weeks. These are hosted by librarians throughout the state. And we cover different topics that are good for English 111, but also ones that deal with any types of extensive writing, for the human services students, for the psychiatry students, for the nursing students, for the business students. We also cover citation information and more, and we have a full workshop on library tips and tricks. You can always click one of these to know more information about your personal account or to know what's going on here through the library. If you ever need to send us an email, you can do fill out an email form here. If you scroll down and you're wondering how to call us or how to talk to somebody specifically, you can email us. You can also text and call. Moving up, we do have a wonderful collection of books. We also swap out books with different campuses within the Ivy Tech site. So with your C number, that is used as your library card. So everybody can check out up to 10 books at a time, and you are welcome to renew them as long as no one else needs them. And then finally, there are 2 areas that you can go to find sources or to do research. If you go to A to Z resources and you click into that button, you'll see that we have 134 databases. As you scroll down, you see that each one of these are listed, and these are individual databases. So this is, by going to A to Z resources, you are able to enter and look at databases one by one. Now, if you go to start with Discover, that allows you to search multiple databases that are found in A to Z resources at one time. And so if you are ever asked by your instructor or told by the parameters of your assignment to speak to a librarian, you can do that by going over here. If they are asking you to find resources or sources from an academic site, or they want you to find something that's peer reviewed, or they want you to go to the library to find information about your paper or about your topic, they are referring to the research that we do here and that we do here. So we'll be using that quite a bit, or these quite a bit during this presentation. Now, going back to this, when we're talking about our policy argument and change, when we're in that brainstorming stage, the best place to go, in my opinion, at least through Ivy Tech, is to opposing viewpoints. Opposing viewpoints can be accessed by clicking opposing viewpoints, this link, or you can go into A to Z resources or A to Z, and then you can click on the O and go to opposing viewpoints. You can also go to types. And if you go to argumentative research and then filter databases, you'll find 3 databases that are dedicated to argumentative research. And when we're talking about argumentative research, we're oftentimes talking about provocative topics that really are personal. You know, a lot of people have opinions about many different issues. And the argumentative research is to find one of those topics and to discuss it and to argue a point within it. And so CQ Researcher is listed here. A lot of instructors like this one. We have opposing viewpoints in context, and then we have points of view reference source. And so we're going to be using opposing viewpoints in context today. And because I like it as a database for research, or sort of brainstorming and research. So there are a couple of ways to navigate this site once you're here. The first one is it's very straightforward, but it also can be a little too much for some people. But it does show you everything we have, and that's by clicking on this button for browsing to browse all 492 topics. If you click here, what you will see is 3 lists, and on these lists, these are all alphabetized, and they show all the different topics that one might explore depending on what they're doing for that class. And so just scrolling through this slowly, you know, we have a lot of different debates that have been featured here based off of different topics that are concerns of people around the world. We have things like addiction and chemical dependency, factory farming, pollution, prisons, privacy, feminism, food waste, for-profit education, for-profit prisons, alternative medicine, Alzheimer's disease, America's global influence, America's wealthy, American dream, gangs, gender identity, genetic engineering. All of these are some of the 490 plus topics that you can find in opposing viewpoints. Next, you are welcome to look at these issues, like in terms of themes. And so when we're looking at these, you might be looking, trying to write a paper that addresses things politically. You might want to look at things that are involve maybe the military, or maybe negotiations, or maybe relationships we have around the world. You might be interested in something more anthropological, like how people and how groups work within our society, how we function. You can look at things related to ethics. But for my purposes, I will go ahead and let you know I am concerned. One of the things that interests me, and it does help when you're thinking about research, to think about what has stood out in the readings that the teachers have told you or have been giving you. What are things that impact your life, your personal life, maybe in school or out of school? What's impacting your family, your kids? What's happening in your neighborhood? Those are a lot of things that I start to think about when I am addressing a topic like a policy change. And so for me, when I'm thinking about this, I'm going to go ahead and look at business and economics, because as a newer homeowner, I am concerned about keeping that roof over my head. And so when I'm looking at these, I've chosen the issue of business and economics because housing ties to money. And I could go through this list simply just as I have, but I'm actually going to be looking at affordable housing today. But what I used logically when I was coming to that was I looked at, these topics. And you're probably familiar with this from streaming. You probably see it in Spotify, with Netflix, whatever. They're like, you don't know what you want specifically, but why don't you look at these other topics? And that's actually how I found it when I was preparing for this presentation. You can also, if you know what you're talking about, go ahead and just click it in this, type it in the search box. So I know that housing concerns me. So if I type in housing, what comes up is actually affordable housing, and that's how they've grouped it. So I'm going to click here, although there are many ways that I could have done it, at least two others. And no matter what topic I choose, I'm going to see a similar format. And that's what I encourage everybody today to be thinking about when I'm going through this, is to say, to think to yourself, okay, I saw this at this database. Maybe it's the same on this database, or maybe I should be looking for these ed tech tools here because they were on the last one. And so I'm going to be looking at affordable housing, but most likely other people are going to choose other topics. So let's see what's on this no matter what you choose. One thing you're going to see is a read overview. You can get some background information if you look at the read overview. It's also going to clarify standout names, brands, dates, statistics that all can be very useful when trying to wrap your head and understand about why this is an important thing to be discussing or thinking about. We also have this related topics, which I feel is very useful when you're in the brainstorming stage. So for affordable housing, we have topics like American Dream, gentrification, government spending, government stimulus packages, green building, green cities. We also have different types of sources here. So we have primary sources that are developed during the time that an incident occurs, like a newspaper or a photograph. We have images that could be considered sources if you're able to explain them and work them into your assignment. We have infographics and statistics. This is when you're coming up with some numbers and quantitative data. Maybe you want to compare different groups to each other, but this would be a good place. These are considered sources. We have academic journals also, which contain peer-reviewed articles, which is very important to many teachers, at least for one of the sources that we see. So you can see that there are many different types of sources. just to consider, because you might be thinking that you can only find one type, and maybe you can only find one type depending on what your teacher has told you for this assignment, like the rules of the assignment. But if you are looking for sources and you're given free reign to find different types of sources, then I just want to show you all the ones that are here. So you might want to click on any of these. So this is going to be part of every single type of topic that you choose here in Opposing Viewpoints. Now, when you click this read overview, it opens up into wonderful information. As I mentioned, it's going to just really break down the topic in an understandable manner that will at least give you enough to say to yourself, I want to pursue this. I want to learn more about this topic. Or, oh, this isn't what I'm interested in. Maybe I should backtrack and continue that search, continue that brainstorming process. And so if you go to the article contents here, we can see that it breaks down into three parts: the legacy of segregated housing, low-income rental assistance programs, and rising rents and solutions. So I see sometimes that students are studying a topic where they have to show both sides of the story. I do think that Opposing Viewpoints is a good place to look at that, because a lot of times they will offer differing perspectives that different people are saying, or different groups. So if you click on any one of these, it's just going to pop you down to a different part of the assignment, or I'm sorry, the reading, and you can get the info you need. Another thing I love about this is the related subjects part. You are eventually going to be doing keyword searching in order to find the best sources for your research. And so it's nice to know, especially if you're not an expert in your topic, what kinds of words are used within that field. And so when I'm later typing in, and start with discover my keywords, I might want to look at public housing. I might want to look at rent subsidies. I might want to say poor people instead of low income. So whatever the situation is, these are just giving me some more food for thought. We also have some articles that are considered sources here. And so those are all things that I might be able to use to further my knowledge of this topic. In terms of educational technology tools, we can translate this, and we can put this in different languages. We can make the font smaller. We can make it bigger. We can change the font here, maybe change it to dyslexic, maybe use something with serifs or not, meaning that little part of the letter that kind of kicks out. We can put color behind it if we choose. We can manipulate the line spacing. So there's a lot that we can do for our eyesight and vision as we're reading to make it easier to comprehend. We can also listen to this article as we go through it. There's definitely some power into listening to while you're reading, because that's like getting it from two different senses, so it can reinforce your brain to remember the information. Sometimes, with everyone usually listening to music, commuting, there are opportunities to also listen to this article and get it through the that audio option. From here, you can also get citation information. Everybody is going to be expected to have a works cited or a references page, depending on whether you're going with APA or MLA. This will allow you to send it to yourself as an email, and also put it in Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. You can download this to your device. You can print it. You can also get a permalink, and a permalink is helpful because it will, if you use that instead of this up here, it will allow you to work around the paywalls. And then finally, you can annotate your own work by using highlights and notes. So these are all very nice things, and I would encourage everybody to look at this first when you're in that brainstorming stage, especially if you haven't yet committed. Now, if you do say, this is good for me, I would encourage you to spend a few minutes and look at some of your options for sources, because you can see there are already, hundreds available to you. I'm going to click into academic journals because this is a source type that many instructors like for at least one article or one source. And a lot of times why they like that is because it's gone through a process called a peer review, where it has been scrutinized by other experts in the field, maybe colleagues, maybe people who are also studying the same issues. And they read the work that their colleague has brought together, and they weigh in on whether or not it can be trusted based off of what the reading says, maybe the research that they did, maybe the claims that they are making. They use their expertise to test whether or not this document is real. And so in an era where people have good reason to be skeptical of what they are consuming, a peer-reviewed article essentially guarantees that you are looking at something that is, that is going to be useful, and it is not going to be simply somebody's opinion. It's going to be something that can be trusted. And trust is there's a big commodity in trust, especially in academics. And so you can see here that all of these are options. They all say peer reviewed, that gold standard. And say I wanted to look at this article more closely, I could click on any of these. You can see that the formatting that I did previously carries over as long as I'm here. I get a whole new list of subjects, and I could continue. We have the same EdTech tools to make it more accessible. So this is how you access the articles here. So this is, as I said, a wonderful place to go when you're in the brainstorming stage. And I always like to introduce students to this because it is essentially, it has to be done. It has to be done. You have to choose your source. You have to choose your topic within this bigger topic before you're going to make any move. I mentioned earlier, when a student comes to me and says, I need to write a paper about policy, argument, and change, I'm always going to say, well, what do you want to study about that? Like, what interests you? What do you want to change? First step. And so we're going to be talking about affordable housing in this model. And as you know, just with opposing viewpoints alone, you have over 490 other options. Once you have found your topic, the next step is to just pepper it with questions. And so what you're trying to do is you are trying to think about all the things you want to know about this topic, specifically for the purposes of fulfilling this assignment. And so I just start blasting my topics with questions whenever I'm doing research myself, personal research, the things that really stand out to me. Some examples here that I could consider is, what are the main causes of the affordable housing shortage in the United States? That's quite, I mean, I think it might have been affordable at one time, who knows? But now I'm just like, is it possible? Like, what causes? Why are people struggling so hard right now? So what are some of the causes that I want to learn more about? Another question I might be asking myself is, what role do wages play in housing affordability? So, I mean, people make certain amounts of money when they work. So how feasible is it that people are able to afford a home in the 2020s, given what they make at their job? And then another question I might want to ask is, how effective are local governments in addressing housing shortages? So I know that there are programs out there that might be able to assist me. I know that the government, they have some power and they sometimes have money. So I'm wondering, maybe they can make this problem better, but I want to know what role they play. So these are just a few of the many questions I have about affordable housing. And so once I do this, and I just have listed 3, I could probably fill the page with many more. The next step is to just choose one. You've got to choose one. You've got to choose what you're going to focus within your topic So you can really start to straighten up and think about what kind of sources you need. So in this case, I've chosen the topic of what role do wages play in housing affordability? I am curious about the money piece, of course. And this is important because my research question of what role do wages play in housing affordability, this helps me develop my thesis. And my thesis is going to occur in the first paragraph of my research paper. And this is where I'm going to say or give the answer to the question, or at least, and this can change. Your thesis might change, the wording might be different, but you really want to get as far as you can with both the research question and the thesis so you are able to really just be, I keep saying the word focus, but it's true. So you can stay, you cannot be swayed to look at all the different issues that will be coming up tied to your topic. It is very easy to get distracted during research because there's always so much information. So you really have to be reading with an eye for with specific goals in mind. So if my question is, what role do wages play in housing affordability? Then my answer is, increasing wages and salary are the most effective methods to improve housing affordability for low-income and middle-class workers. And so what I'm saying is, hey, they do play a huge role. Wages do make an impact. And if they increase them, if people have higher salaries and higher wages, then that will definitely make it easier for them to afford homes. And I'm talking about low income and middle class workers. And so I'm not only talking about money and saying, hey, people need more money to afford houses. I'm saying I want to also see how this impacts a specific population. Because sometimes when we're talking about a population, you know, it is going to be different. If we were looking at all the people of the world, well, money means different things for different people. And it really does, it plays a huge role in whether or not they can have the things that they want and need. And so once we've done this, we end up coming up with somewhat of a triangle. Doesn't always end up like a triangle. But if you want to think about this in terms of, you know, going from bigger to smaller, policy argument and change is our model big topic that's being spoken about in class, your teacher's readings, assignments, discussion board posts. Those are all tied to this overarching theme. Now, within that, you choose a topic. So I've chosen affordable housing as the piece that I want to know more about, given the call to study policy argument and change. My question is, what role do wages play in housing affordability? That's what I want to know about affordable housing. And my answer is, increasing wages and salary are the most effective methods to improve housing affordability for low income and middle class workers. So I've taken this big topic and now I'm going to start to prove that, with my sources, that this is the best way to make affordable housing a reality for people who struggle. More money for them at work so they can afford homes. That's what I'm saying. It's very specific. Now, once I've done this, the next step is to create keywords. And the reason why we're going to do that is that, we want to prepare ourselves for the keyword search. That is how we're going to focus the rest of this demonstration. Because keyword searching is something we do all the time when we're in Google. We may not think of it specifically as keyword searching, but indeed that is exactly it. So we today are going to talk about using words that we can type in to both start with Discover and in these databases. We'll be looking at all of them at once when we're here, or nearly all of them, and then we'll be looking at them one by one. So what we're doing here is we are, when we're in the keyword development stage of our process, we are trying to come up with words that we can type into those databases. And they're tied to our thesis, they're tied to the research question, but we're trying to use as many words as we can from here because this is exactly what we're trying to prove. And so if I was talking about increasing wages and salaries, then maybe I need to find some words that tie to money you make at your job. So what are different things that we can call that? Well, we can call wages. We can talk about wage growth as a quote, together. We can talk about minimum wage with quotes, again, or without. We can look at income, hourly, salary. All of these all tie to money that we make when we are laboring. And so this quote marks, these are things that I choose to put in sometimes. It depends. I'm going to get different results when I do this. But it's important to know that when you put quote marks around anything that is 2 words or more, what you're saying to your to the computer is that you want both of these words in that order together. Okay. And so that's what those quotes mean. When you take them apart, the computer starts to read them individually, which I'll demonstrate. We also have different ways that we can look at the way that families look. Middle class, we call them workers, we call them households, we call them families. Sometimes we talk about, other words that just come to mind when I'm thinking. Sometimes I just put in words, that I just know tied to it, but maybe aren't directly from it. I have cost of living. A lot of people talk about that. Rent, a rent burden, housing affordability. So these are words. Sometimes it takes me a few minutes to write these out. Sometimes I use a thesaurus. Sometimes I start it, I take a walk, I come back to it. This is one of the steps that can take a while, or sometimes it can take no time at all. It just really depends on my topic and my bandwidth, how much energy I have at the time. And sometimes it really does help me just to take a break so I can recharge my brain and come back to the task, because I know it can be a long one. And now once I have my keyword searches, the final thing I'm doing is I am thinking about my searching strategies. And so what I'm going to demo next is how to take these words and to apply them to different databases to get different results. We're going to first look at two sets of words and start with discover and see what kind of results we get. Next, we're going to use similar words, but we're going to apply different filters to the research process. We're going to begin with start with discover, but then we're going to move to academic search complete, which is a multidisciplinary database. And then finally, we're going to look at a subject specific database, which is for this one is going to be a business source complete. But this is when we're looking at a database that has specialized information, as opposed to a multidisciplinary database that has wonderful information, but it just covers a wide breadth of what is available or what is out there. So you'll have things that could apply to anybody under any discipline that has been published as recently as yesterday. It's very fast. And then subject specific, still very current, but about a specific topic. So let's go ahead and start to apply these, and let me show you how you do it. So again, we are here at the Indianapolis Library site, and we are going to start with discover. And in here, we are going to type in low income and housing. Okay, very basic, very straightforward. Once I type in these words, I'm going to click search. Once I click search, what I see are 2 columns. We have a column on the left, we have a column on the right. The column on the left is going to talk about the ebooks and books that are available throughout the Ivy Tech system that will address your topic. On the right-hand side, we have a column that is dedicated purely to databases. If this is an 8 weeks class, I am going to encourage you to fully invest in the databases over here on the right, because they're so up to date and there are ed tech tools that help make them more accessible and easier to understand. If you have a 16-week class, or you just have time on your hands, and you have the time to pleasure read, by all means, you might want to consider what's over here on the left-hand side, but because we do have excellent books here. But I also, even in a 16 weeks, think that, our database results might be some of the best we have to offer, especially with topics that are really, that you're hearing on the news all the time, or that are concerns of people as it ties to their communities, because politics and heavy issues sometimes can just change really fast. And so this is going to give you the most current information. So once you're looking at this, you can see that we have over 1 million results. In fact, we have 1,478,634 results, which is, I don't know, exciting. We get some, it looks like my keywords are working, but I will go ahead and also say that that might just be too much. And so since it is too much for what we're doing, we're going to start to apply some filters to make that number lower. The first filter I'm going to show you is under limiters, and it's called peer reviewed. If you click on peer reviewed, that's also, remember, peer reviewed articles are found in academic journals. So if I click on peer reviewed here, that's going to eliminate all my options outside of the ones that have been peer reviewed and live in academic journals, as you can see right here. And so we have 217,000 results, which is over 1 million less. It sounds like 1,200,000 less than what we started with our initial sweep before we applied any filters. You can also notice that we got rid of those books and ebooks. Once you start putting filters on the left or the right columns, the other side will disappear. The computer stops checking the other side. Next, we're going to apply a publication date. We tend to look at publication dates that are 5 years. I have had instructors who have had something like a 2 or 3 year time frame. I've also had instructors who are doing research over something like, they want their students to maybe study, the history of some type of product from America. And so, we don't necessarily need a 5-year time frame to study how sewing machines were invented, or talk about the Industrial Revolution. And so when we're talking about argumentative research, or we're talking about research that is really where we want to know the most current research, it's always good to put in a time frame of 5 years. So I'm going to go ahead and click include. And so then that's going to take me to 68,000, which again is remarkably lower than the first sweep and then the second sweep even. Now, once we're here, what do? Well, we start looking at the titles. We start looking at these titles. They are all in green. And we're looking for words. We're looking for things that stand out to us. I mean, we can see where our keywords are showing up here. They're coming up in the title. They're coming up in the magazine, the academic journal that it lives in. Sometimes it's in the description. Sometimes it's in the content itself. Sometimes it could be the author's name. So depending on what we're typing in, that is what the computer is doing, is that it's looking for a match. And so if I find an article that stands out to me, I can access it by clicking here on this green link. We can also check for full text. If I check for full text, it's going to take me to a page that has so much good information. First one being access options. So if you're thinking to yourself, how do I finally get to the options or to the articles? Here they are, either as a PDF or an online full text. We also have our references link, which I'll discuss, as well as a cited by button. We have an abstract. We love abstracts. Abstracts are oftentimes found in academic journals or academic databases. So this could be an academic journal, but we also get an abstract for a news article or for a primary source. But essentially, An abstract is a summary of the contents of the source that you are going to be viewing. And a lot of times when I'm doing conducting a tutoring session with a student, we will look through the abstract to determine whether or not we want the article before we commit to it. So this gives you good background. And then we have these options. So let's go ahead and look at these. Now, if I would click a PDF, this is going to take me to this wonderful article. And so as you're looking at a PDF, you can see there's nice colors. It looks like we have some links here that are active links. We have that abstract repeated. You can see we have columns, we have page numbers as we scroll down. So this is pretty nice. A lot of people like this format. We can go here for citation information. Once again, APA, MLA is offered here. Your instructor will let you know which one you're using in the class. You can use this swoop here to save it to your email or to send it to Google Drive or to OneDrive in Microsoft. You can download this to your device. You can also listen to this. So if you click on these headphones, you can speed it up, go to any part of the article, and listen to it as you live your busy lives. Another thing that you can do is you can access the online full text. Online full text, this is same wording, but there's difference. As you can see, there are no columns here. We don't have those clickable links in the document. We have no page numbers. Again, that's fine. It's just a preference of what you're looking for and what your needs are. Now, the biggest difference, though, what I would say, comes in the form of accessibility. And so if you click this globe, which is the one tech tool that is different than the others in the PDF, if you click here, you can translate your document in just a few moments. So if I would click Spanish, you can see that this just took a moment to change it from English to Spanish. Now, the one thing I want to caution everyone, though, is that if you translate it here, then you are going to not be able to listen to it here. So that is sort of a difference, a little trade-off, but it just depends on what you need. But we do have both options here. Another thing that you can look at is this cited by, and we'll see this during different examples, but a cited by option, this is cited by one, but I see some that are cited by dozens. And a cited by means that other researchers have looked at this source, this article specifically, and they've used information from it to do their own research. And so they have, this gives your source more credibility because it says, hey, other people are seeing value in it. And so maybe this is something that I see value in given my topic and what I'm trying to prove in my paper tied to my thesis. You can also consider going to references. References is a really good place for sources as well. I mean, everything I'm looking at, this is a source, this is a source, this is a source. These researchers here, when they were developing this paper, they went to these papers to find their information as they were doing their research. Once again, this is another way to save yourself time for the effort that you're putting in to find sources, but also this is another form of credibility to let you know that your source has been researched extensively before it was published. Okay, so well deserved with the peer review, the peer gold standard. And so this is what you do. You go through and you click on these buttons, you read the abstracts and you say, do I keep it? Do I not keep it? Do I want to move further beyond this little summary that I've been given? What formats do I have? How do I want to consume this new information? There's all types of things here once you type in the appropriate keywords. And so that's just our first sweep. And so after you've done your initial first sweep, the next one is to do it again. Just do it again. So we did low income and housing, and we got over 1 million hits. We saw that nearly, was it 1,200, 1 million, 2 100,000, maybe 400,000. Next, we're going to do this with low income. So keeping one of those words, but now we're going to say low cost housing. I've also, once again, I've done something a little different is I've put these quote marks around it. And I'm doing this because I want the computer to be reading this together and in this order. I've also used the word and here, which is a Boolean operator. We use operators when we are doing online research or we're doing any type of research to let the student or let the computer know that we want both of these in the articles. And also refers to both in this case. I want both words or sets of words somewhere in the article. It's that important to me. And if they don't all get in this article, then I don't want it. That's essentially what I'm saying. So we have low income and quote low cost housing. If I click search, what do I get for my first sweep? Well, now I get 19,000 results. That's great. That's a lot less than over 1 million for sure. And this time I could continue. I could do peer reviewed again. I could say 2021 to 2026. But remember, I have other options. So what I could do, sometimes teachers say, I don't want 5 years. I want something like 10 years. I'll give you some more flexibility. Okay, so what does that do to my search? And now I have 6,700, lost over 10,000. Another thing is I might want to explore my different source types. So we were looking at academic journals, we were looking at peer reviewed, but what if I want to look at the news? I get a lot of my information from the news. What if I want to look at a trade publication? Well, a trade publication is published for people who are in the industry. So maybe I'm a politician and I want to know more about the housing industry. Maybe I'm a real estate agent and I have some clients who are stressed out because they can't afford anything I show them. So a trade publication could be very useful. It's written for people who work in the field. We have research starters, biographies, reports, magazines. There's so many different types of sources. And so say I want to look at the news now. I've already looked at peer-reviewed articles. My teacher says it's okay to look at news or, explore different source types. So that's what I'm going to do. And so we have now 4,700. And I could look at any of these to see if the source will fit for me. But another thing I really love about filters is all the other options here because subjects can also narrow down that list. So subjects, I tend to think of them as tags. So many of us use social media. Many of us have, different ways that we let our friends and the world know that we have done something. And so we'll add words or tags so they're findable or more accessible. And so subjects are working the same way. Either the publisher or the author, they'll put in keywords or subjects so other people can find them during their research. So say I wanted to maybe explore how, maybe I'm curious about homelessness. Maybe my findings have shown me that it is just getting, that the homelessness rate has increased, and now I'm concerned, and I want maybe a line or two of that information in my paper. Well, then I can go ahead and I can do a subject of homelessness, and now I have just 6 results, which again, pretty nice, especially considered we started off with 19,000. But hopefully you understand that by looking at this and by adding new filters, changing the words even ever so slightly, you can really make a huge impact in your research. Now, once we've looked at Start with Discover, and I tend to look at this, I always show students this just to show how big it can get. We then start to work with, or we have the options for individual databases. Earlier, I referred to multidisciplinary databases, and Academic Search Complete is one that we use quite frequently with different audiences, different classes, like I mentioned, history, philosophy, psychology, engineering, chemistry. I mean, we're talking to research classes all the time, and we can use Academic Search Complete with any of them. So if I click into this, then you can see I have a different layout as compared to start with Discover. So in this case, I'm going to start to type in some words, and I am going to use the words wages and all the predictive text that comes with it, which I don't get in Start with Discover. I'm going to type in housing affordability with the quotes because I want the computer to look at it that way. And then I'm going to look at impact. So when I pull these together, I'm using and, or not, that Boolean operator I referred to earlier. And remember, when I say and, I'm saying I want all these words in the same article. They've got to be there or I don't want them. When I'm using or, I'm saying that I want these sources, but they can be individual. I don't necessarily need wages and housing affordability in the same articles, as long as I'm still getting all of my articles that say wages and I'm still getting all my articles that say housing affordability. They are still giving me articles. They just don't necessarily overlap, and all those words aren't necessarily in every source. And then finally, we have the option of not. And not is an option when we are making something that, or we are wanting to not have a word show up in a source. So if I was, maybe I felt like I had exhausted the wages and salaries piece, but maybe now in my research, I found something new that I want to explore. Maybe I want to see how it impacts. Maybe I want to see how, not wages or salary. Maybe I want to see how inheritances impact housing affordability, or maybe I want to see how generational wealth impacts housing affordability. So if I want to say I don't want something anymore, I can always add not beside it, and the computer will just overlook those. It will usually default to and, so we're going to keep those here. I'm going to go ahead and put in peer reviewed. I'm going to click past 5 years. If I want to look at different documents, I can always do it here. I can look at publication types. I can do it here. I could change the language. I could even alter the page numbers of my articles. But eventually I click search. And once I click search, you can see I have 34 options, which I know it's not 1,400,000. However, 34 is something I can wrap my head around, and I don't feel too overwhelmed. And so here, as we scroll down, you might be seeing some things that look very familiar. We have these access options, a PDF, online full text. We have cited by 9 for this one. If I click this show more, this is how I can access the abstract, which could save me time. And what I'm doing is I'm just scrolling down here. I'm looking at the titles. I'm looking at the abstracts. I'm looking at these, looking for some credibility. Ooh, cited by 22. That looks promising. Cited by 11, 1, 8, 46. Wow. Okay. I think I'm going to scroll up to this one for 22. I'm going to go ahead and click in here. And I can always access my document, the PDF online. You can see I can download it, cited by 22. I have a bunch of articles that I might consider for other sources if this one works for me. I have this long list of references that I can use. Again, this reminds me of what I just saw with Start with Discover. And yes, I can make my decision. But this should all be very familiar to you at this point. You can still go here for your citation. So MLA, APA, your teacher will let you know which one you're using. This is where you could send it to Google Drive, OneDrive, or to your email. And this is another way you could download it in addition to this. So one of the benefits of going through Academic Search Complete is not only is it going to be robust in terms of having a lot of good information, but it's going to show you smaller results, which might be easier for you as opposed to something in the millions. The millions sometimes is just too overwhelming for some students. And so it might just be something to think about when you're thinking about what your bandwidth is for this assignment. The final thing I'll show you within this is a subject-specific database. And so if you go here to subjects, you'll see different topics that help organize the databases. So we have databases that focus on agriculture and in the environment. We have ones that deal with money, economics, business. We have ones about education. Education can be highly, highly political or argumentative. Anything related to the humanities, history, some background, some things that will help you give more background information about a topic. Just explore more, know more about your world. Information technology. I could definitely think of a few things within this topic that people might be thinking about. And we can just scroll on and on. So if you were looking for a specific set of databases that are all about a specific topic, you might want to go here. And so I'm going to go ahead. I already know that I want to look at business because we're talking about money, and I'm going to filter those databases. So I have 25 databases that I might choose from, significantly lower than 134. And I'm going to look at Business Source Complete. When I click in Business Source Complete, I am going to go ahead and conduct my search. Again, this should all look very familiar to you. This is, we have some more information down here. That's fine, not a big deal. You can also see some options are a little bit different. They give us more because this is the business world and they have specialized vocabulary. So if I wanted to type in low income, which is what I typed in earlier, maybe I don't want to look at the predictive text. And then I want to look at housing. I could use predictive text or not. I'm bringing it with and. I always have options. You always have options. And every single time you do something different, you're going to get a different set of results. Click search. This gives me 349. That's not bad. That's not bad. And even though our first results in our academic search complete got us 34, you know, when you're looking at this, we were being very specific in the types of words that we wanted. And I gave it the command that they all had to overlap. So that's probably the reason why we got that number of 34. But 349 is also really good. At a certain point, you're always welcome to add more filters. So if you clicked here, this would pop out and I could say, oh, now maybe just show me the peer-reviewed ones, or, oh, let's just see the ones that have been posted in the last 12 months. So I can always add filters if I don't do it the first time. And then scrolling down, once again, we're seeing all these different articles that could be our sources, okay? So the final thing that we're going to discuss today is going to be we're going to look at local resources. And the reason why I want to look at the local resources that can be found, and I'm looking at this on the Indianapolis site under A to Z resources. Once I'm here, especially if you're talking about a policy change, you might want to look at your own community to really notice the problems because they impact you the most. You might be seeing them every day. They might be impacting your kids or your work or your mortgage rates or whatever the situation is. And so you want your health. So it's not a bad thing for this research specifically to look at local databases. So if we go to types, if you scroll down, we do have a local resources tab. So if you filter the databases, we do have 5 databases that you might use. One of them is the Indianapolis Star. Indianapolis Star is free to Indianapolis Ivy Tech students, but you do have to go in through our library site. You cannot put the app on your phone and get into it for free. You do have to go through the process. But once you are in the Indianapolis Star, and hopefully this will get here, the Indianapolis Star is a place that you can go to for more information. We can also go to Mirror Indie. Let's see if this is working a little bit. So Mirror Indie is just an excellent source that I love to look at with students because they are concerned about both historical issues tied to our city as well as the ones that are impacting the neighborhoods and residents of Indiana and central Indiana. So I could always look at government, education, health, neighborhoods to learn more. I could also click on this magnifying glass and I could type in affordable housing, and it could show me a number of different articles that I could look at more closely. So maybe I could talk to something that is, maybe in my neighborhood. I could say, hey, this meeting's going to be happening, or this is the policy, or this is the legislation that's been happening in Indiana or for our district specifically. But this could also give your resource a little bit of power, or your argument some more power. We also have, it's not listed here, and we'll see if this will work for us here. But we also have something that is called findhelp.org. And findhelp.org is a really nice place to go if you want information about your neighborhood or want to know what kind of organizations or services are available to people who are experiencing different types of life problems or need assistance. So we have food issues, housing, goods, transit, health, money, care, education. If I wanted to click on housing, and I typed in my zip code 46201 and find programs, it's going to verify that I'm a human. And once it verifies that I am a human, then I have 307 results for housing in Indianapolis. I could open this up to see different types of, maybe I need help paying for housing. I could always click on one of these and this will help filter it to paying for the internet, paying for phone, paying for utilities. I could learn about how to purchase one, foreclosure counseling, home buyer education. I get 307 results here, and I see the business. I see who is supporting it. I have a phone number. I have an address. I can see when they're open. All of these things can be useful. I can also make this smaller by focusing on by clicking into a filter. Now, instead of 307 results, I have 10 results that focus on home buyer education. So that's also something that I could use, I could look at to find sources. So I definitely would encourage you to look through this. We'll try one more time with this Indianapolis Star to see if it'll load. Too bad. I do promise in the future, if you look at this, this is still very effective. So, but this is also a good place that I would suggest that you consider. And so that, at this point, that is where we're going to start to wrap up this presentation and instruction. I feel confident that we have covered quite a bit of information that will be useful to you during your research journey. Now, research is something that no one expects you to be an expert in. It is something it's a skill that just gets better with more practice. And the more that you do it, you'll realize that there are nuances and changes and ways that you need to adjust to get the results that you need. But by learning this skill, especially in school, when you're already here, you are setting yourself up for much success, both academically and personally. So today, what you did is we learned how to find information from appropriate sources. We looked at many different places that contain sources that you might consider for your topic, whether it's affordable housing or any of those ones that we saw listed in opposing viewpoints, or just things that, make an impact and matter to you. We identified databases and resources that will help you as you are looking for those sources. And then we talked about how keywords play a role into really finding what you need within those databases, as well as the filters, as well as the punctuation. All of those things play huge roles when you are looking to expand your knowledge on a topic. So finally, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sitting through this presentation. There are 2 QR codes that can fast track your journey. If you use your QR code or your scanner to get to the library site, to Indy Library, you can get right here if my IV is prohibitive. And then, it is harder for you to get to. And then we also have a link to our campus tutoring services, which I absolutely encourage you to look into. Thank you once again for being here. I welcome all of you to the library as soon as